certainly my pleasure to welcome all of you to this insightful panel discussion, Conversations on Education series under the theme, The Realities of Empowering the Male Child in Our Village. We are honored to have a distinguished panel of experts, discussants, educators, and community leaders with us today to explore this critical topic. I am Dr. Kerry Marcel, and I will be moderating this series. Dr. Ian Strawn, our esteemed discussion, will facilitate our conversation as we engage in meaningful dialogue on the challenges and opportunities surrounding the empowerment of our young men. To officially open our session, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Natasha Swan, the chair of the School of Education, to bring greetings at this time. We welcome her.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Marcel. And good afternoon, distinguished panelists, esteemed discussants, honored guests, our hardworking faculty, staff, and students of the School of Education, our dean, Dean White, other faculty members, students of the University of the Bahamas community. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this session of Conversations on Education series hosted by the School of Education, the best school at the University of the Bahamas. Today we gather under the thought-provoking theme, the realities of empowering the male child in our village. This topic is both timely and critical as we reflect on the challenges, opportunities, and responsibilities we share in shaping the lives of young men in our society. The empowerment of the male child is not just a concern for parents or educators. It is a community effort requiring intentional support, guidance, and meaningful engagement. We are privileged to have an outstanding panel of experts, educators, and community leaders who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to this discussion. I extend my deepest gratitude to all panelists and our discussant, my former professor, Dr. Ian Strawn, for lending their voices to this important conversation. I also wish to thank each of you in the audience for your presence and engagement. Your participation signals a collective commitment to ensuring that every child, especially our young men, has the tools, confidence, and opportunities to succeed. I encourage you to listen, reflect, and contribute as we explore solutions that will make a difference in the lives of all of our boys and young men. Once again, welcome, and I look forward to a rich and insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swan. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Liam Slater, a student of primary education, to lead us in prayer. Would you all stand as we reference God?
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we acknowledge your presence here today. We ask that you would be with us, guide our panelists, our discussion, give them strength, give them the words to say. We pray for each attendee here today that you would bless them and help it to be a rich and informative session. I pray with each of us as current or future educators that you would be with us and help us to be able to encourage and protect our male students. So we ask again that you would bless this session and that you would bring us through it safely. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you, Liam, for reminding us that God is everywhere, even in this session. Please let's welcome now Dr. Micklewhite, who is the Dean of the College of Social and Educational Studies, to the podium. And Dr. Micklewhite will convey special thanks. Let's give our Dean.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I know you're so excited to hear this wonderful, wonderful panel. So I'm not going to be very long. But like just one said, the greatest school, I say the greatest college, the College of Social and Educational Studies. And I'm saying this quite so because I believe I saw coming in the room Dr. Jessica Minnis and her class. Dr. Minnis, are you here?
I'm here.
Yes, in your class.
Introduction to Sociology.
That's right, Introduction to Sociology. So you see we're well represented, not just education students, just one. We are representing the whole college because we're all interested in this very important topic, right? Yes. The male child. We're very serious about it and we know that there are challenges. But I believe by this afternoon we're going to have some great things. So I just want to commend Chair Swan and the School of Education for the awesome job they are doing in keeping this conversation going. This started back in 2017, Chair Swan, and I also want to commend Chair Edgecombe, our former chair of the school, who also kept it going for all these years. We want to, as a School of Education, to engage our students, we engage the Ministry of Education, independent or what we call private schools, on topics that are relevant to education. Every year we do this because we are going to keep the conversation going until we find solutions. So again, commendations, Chair Swan and your committee, I believe headed by Chair Stubbs, the chair is Dr. Stubbs, for doing an awesome job. Commendations to all of the faculty here who brought your students along. Let's have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Micklewhite, and we do hope that our ears are tuned to what will be discussed this afternoon. And now I would like to invite Mr. Gino Miller, who is a student of secondary education, to introduce our esteemed panelists and discussants.
Standing on the established protocol, good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Ian Strawn, our esteemed discussant, is Professor of English at the University of the Bahamas. He holds an AA in English and Literature from the University of the Bahamas and a teacher's certificate from the University of the West Indies, a BA in English from Morehouse University, and an MA and PhD, respectively, from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Strawn is a third-generation educator. He teaches film, acting, creative writing, modern drama, as well as Caribbean, African-American literature. He plays or was responsible for the writing of the play, The Gun Boys Rhapsody, now on the national BGCSE curriculum, and he is co-editor of a scholarly book on films of Sidney Poitier entitled Poitier Revisited 2024. His novel, Lying Days, was published in 2023. He is married with 3 sons. Our distinguished panelists include Mrs. Shavana Dowell. She is a proud product of the public school system. She holds an Associate of Arts degree in Social Studies from the College of the Bahamas, a teacher's certificate from the Joint Board of Teacher Education in Jamaica, and both a Bachelor of Education in History and English and a Master's in Literature from the University of the West Indies. A teaching career begun in 1992 at L.W. Young Secondary School, later serving at C.I. Gibson Senior High School and D.W. Davis Junior High School as Social Studies Subject Coordinator. Transitioning into administration in 2005, she held leadership roles at H.O. Nash Junior High and C.R. Walker Senior High Schools, respectively, eventually becoming principal of S.C. McPherson Junior High in 2019. Now the district superintendent for the Southern New Providence Secondary Schools, she oversees multiple schools, driving policies for student success and teacher development and school improvement. Rooted in equity, empowerment, and excellence, she remains committed to ensuring all students have access to quality education and opportunities for success. Reverend John Ronald Dowell is a Bahamian clergyman. He is also a Justice of the Peace and CEO of the Dowell Group of Companies. A graduate of St. John's College, he holds a Bachelor of Arts in Public Administration from the University of the Bahamas and a Master of Science in Organizational Leadership and Learning from Barry University with ongoing graduate studies in Public Administration at DeVry University. Professionally, he serves as Manager of Human Resources at the Bahamas Development Bank and is an adjunct faculty member of the Bahamas Baptist University College. His company, the Dow Group, oversees corporate training, virtual funeral services, and gospel classical music offerings. Formerly a senior government official with a 16-year tenure at the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture. He held roles such as National Youth Ambassador to CARICOM and Executive Director of Junior Achievement Bahamas, entering the as Public Officer of the Year in 2017. Civilly engaged, he is a board member of the Simpson C. Penn and Willamette Pratt Centers for Boys and Girls, and a marriage officer and an ordained minister. Dr. Sterling McPhee, the fourth child of Frederick and Cora McPhee, committed his life to faith at the age of 15, attending A.F. Adderley Senior High School. His passion for biblical studies led him to Selma University, where he graduated valedictorian with a bachelor's in Bible and Pastoral Ministries. He holds a Master of Theology and Doctorate in Biblical Studies from North Carolina Theological Seminary, along with credentials from the College of the Bahamas. An experienced minister, he has served in various leadership roles, including youth pastor, associate minister, and assistant pastor, while preaching and teaching across the Bahamas, the U.S., and the Turks and Caicos. Ordained in 2010, he is a Justice of the Peace, marriage officer, and a member of the Christian Network. With over 31 years in education, he currently serves as principal of C.H. Reeves Junior High School and adjunct lecturer at the University of the Bahamas. Passionate about leadership and purpose-driven learning, Dr. McPhee is married to Dr. Marcia McPhee, and they share 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Draco Maycock, Man of Today, Men of Tomorrow. MOT is a mentoring program dedicated to transforming negative cultural behaviors into positive ones by empowering at-risk boys and young men between the ages of 8 through 25. With a vision for sustainability and nation impact, MOT's aim to be embedded in every Bahamian government school, fostering spiritual, academic, financial, mental, and physical growth. Its mission to provide international, relevant, and positive mentorship that meets young men at their point of need, helping them develop their talents and leadership potential within their families and communities. The Bahamas and the Kingdom of God. Founded in 2007, D. Maycock and M. Maxwell Jones. The program officially launched in 2022 after Maycock's personal health crisis. Now serving as chairman and program director, Maycock, a dedicated mentor, business professional, and disciple of Christ, leads MOT with the belief that a person, quote, is a person through other persons, end quote. Striving to uplift young men by helping them become their best selves. Dr. Glenn Davis has 26 years experience in the private and commercial banking sector and 17 years experience in academia. He is currently employed as a professor at the University of the Bahamas, where he teaches business management, human resource management, and marketing in the School of Business. He is a former chairperson of the School of Business. Dr. Davis is experienced, he's trained, and has extensive knowledge in business, bank operations, human resource management, consumer supervisory management, and leadership. He has an Associate of Arts degree in banking from the then College of the Bahamas, a Bachelor of Arts degree in business management, University of the Bahamas, Masters in Business Administration with concentration in Human Resource Management, West Indies, and a doctorate in Business Administration with concentration in Ethical Leadership from the University of Liverpool, United Kingdom. In 2010, he was inducted as a Fellow of the Bahamas Institute of Bankers. Dr. Davis is currently married to Mrs. Kay Davis, and they have a blended family which include a son, a daughter. He is also an associate pastor at the Life Changers Ministries International here in the Bahamas, and the author of the book Kingdom Fasting, The Purpose, Practice, and Power of Fasting. Judith Tynes Jones. She is associate professor and also school psychologist, College of Social Sciences and Educational Studies here at the University of the Bahamas. Her educational accomplishments includes a PhD in psychology with specialization in school psychology from Capella University, MED in school psychology from Howard University, a BA in general education, special education from George Washington University, a homegrown graduate from St. Anne's Primary and High School in Nassau, Bahamas. Her experience includes that of being a preschool educator, a ninth grade educator. She is Director of Education from the Anglican Authority in the Bahamas. During many of these professional experiences, she was a lecturer at the University of the Bahamas and adjunct professor at the University of Miami. Recently, she joined the University of the Bahamas as an assistant professor. Dr. Jones consulted with the National Commission on Special Education, addressing the national exams for the Bahamas. She facilitated workshops and conferences in the Bahamas and US, both in the private and public sectors. Judith has been a school psychologist in the Bahamas with her privately owned business, TJ Psychological Services, and in 2 public school systems in Georgia. Her research and publication of applying the bio model of intelligence to the scales in the Bahamas continues to be a valuable source of study in the School of Social Science Psychology classes here at the University of the Bahamas. Hank Johnson, U.S. Congressman, awarded Dr. Tynes Jones with a recognition for her invaluable contribution to the community in Georgia in May of 2024. I present to some and introduce to others our esteemed discussant and also our distinguished panelists. Let's give them a round of applause.
After that, I think we need to give Gino Well, thank you, Gino, for your introducing them in that way. And it's certainly amazing to know who you're sitting among in a room. And certainly to our students, you definitely can achieve anything based on what I heard. Anything is possible. So again, thank you, Gino. And as we move now into our panel discussion, I encourage all our attendees, Mrs. Shabana Darble, who's the District Superintendent, Southern New Providence Secondary Schools District for the Ministry of Education, Mr. Dario Maycock, Chairman for Men of Today, Men of Tomorrow Mentoring Program, and Mr. John Darrow, the former Senior Personnel, Ministry of Youth and Culture, pastor at Revolution Church, a giant, and my friend. Our discussant for this session, Dr. Ian Strawn, who is the Executive Vice President of the University of the Bahamas. Our discussion begins.
Good afternoon. So I'm to speak on the underperformance of male students and its impact on society. The underperformance of male students in the Bahamas is a multifaceted issue with profound implications for their academic journey and future prospects. This disparity manifests early in their educational experiences and extends its influence on their social interactions and economic opportunities. For decades, education statistics in the Bahamas have shown a troubling trend. Boys are consistently underperforming compared to girls. The gap is evident in academic achievement, high school completion rates, and tertiary education enrollment. To provide a context for this discussion, permit me to give a background to support the premise that boys are underperforming. Enrollment versus performance. While boys and girls enter school in roughly equal numbers, boys consistently underperform. And in the recent graduation statistics, it was revealed that in 2024, there were 1,804 high school diplomas approved. 1,074 were awarded to girls and 729 to boys. Exam participation. In 2006, out of more than 23,000 BJC examination papers written, only 8,970, or 39%, were written by boys. Boys also earned lower grades on average than their female counterparts. In 2017, girls received 100% more A grades than boys in the BGCSE examinations, with 1,428 A's awarded to girls compared to 713 awarded to boys. Classroom performance. In a 2013-2014 master's study of a junior high school in New Providence, found that the top performing classes were overwhelmingly female, highlighting early disengagement among our boys. Tertiary level. A study by Minnis, Pulmrich, and Ward, 2000, raised concern about male underrepresentation at the tertiary level, noting that females significantly outnumbered males in higher education. This disparity in the graduation rates between males and females of the University of the Bahamas aligns with the enrollment statistics, where in 2020-2021 academic year, females represented 73% of the student body, while males accounted for 27%. The report, the current data for the Examination and Assessment Division shows that the troubling trend of male underperforming continues. The report notes that in the year for the years 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, females received a higher percentage of A to D grades than males on both the BJC and BGCSE examination. The academic underachievement of male students often correlates with strained social relationships. Struggling academically can lead to diminished self-esteem, affecting interactions with peers and educators. While specific national statistics on suspensions by gender are limited, anecdotal evidence suggests that male students are more frequently subjected to disciplinary actions. This increased disciplinary measures can lead to heightened sense of alienation, disengagement from the educational system. This disciplinary cycle contributes to an already struggling academic performance, and in some cases result in students dropping out before earning a high school diploma. Data from 5 schools on New Providence, which has the largest population of students in the country, revealed that out of 251 suspensions, 168 were males. Grades 8 and 9 accounted for 42% of the suspensions, with the leading cause being fighting. In the Abaco district, 91% of the students suspended were boys, 52% of which represents grades 10 and 11, the top reason, fighting. The pattern is the same in the Exuma, Cat Island, Long Island, and Ragged Island district. Boys are the recipients of most of the suspensions, and the suspensions meted out are for fighting, gambling, disruptive behavior. Again, grade 9 males lead the count. Attendance records for 7 high schools on New Providence identify that 334 students as chronically absent during the first term of 2024-2025 school year. Additionally, chronic absenteeism was highest among students aged 13 to 17, with grade 12 students making up 1/4 of the total chronic absentees. 56 of the chronically absent students missed between 16 and 30 days, which significantly impacts their ability to succeed academically. 58% of the students identified as chronically absent are males. These numbers tell a clear story. Our boys have not been and are still not reaching their full potential in the classroom, and the effect of this struggle extends beyond the academics. The long-term economic effects of male underperformance in schools are significant. Employers in the Bahamas have expressed concern about the lack of essential skills among male job applicants. Without strong academic foundations and workforce training, many young men are left with limited job prospects, leading to higher unemployment rates and economic instability. These are expressed through limited job opportunities where employers require at least basic literacy and numeracy skills, yet many male students struggle with these fundamentals. Barriers to training. BTBI's dual enrollment program and the National Training Agency provide alternative career pathways, but even these programs require basic academic competence, which some male students lack. Without the absence of a diploma or technical training, unemployment among males is likely to remain high. The pressure to provide. Many boys are expected to contribute financially to their families, which often leads them to prioritize work over education. Increased risk of crime and social disengagement. When boys disengage from school, they are more likely to struggle with unemployment, poverty, and even crime, affecting the wider community. Male underperformance is not just an academic issue. It is a national crisis with far-reaching consequences. There is a strong link between education and crime. Studies worldwide show that young men who do not complete high school are at a greater risk of engaging in criminal activities. When education fails, society pays the price. Addressing male underperformance does not equate to taking opportunities away from girls. It is about ensuring that boys are equally equipped to succeed. A society cannot function at its best when a considerable portion of its population is struggling academically and socially. To address the challenges, the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training has implemented several key strategies, and I would just highlight them and not go into detail. Universal preschool access, literacy and numeracy support structures and interventions, student success coaches, engaging learning environments. Now I will explain this one because coming September of this year, the ministry will launch the Bahamas Polytechnic Accreditation and Training Hub, which will offer hands-on, skills-based interactive instruction, equipping students with practical competencies for the workplace, thereby providing alternative learning pathways. Reforming school discipline to include restorative practices. These initiatives reflect the ministry's commitment to improving students' outcome, fostering engagement, and ensuring a well-rounded and supportive educational experience for all students. In addition to the government's intervention, we are to be ever mindful that it still takes a village to raise a child. A clarion call for male mentors, an increase in parental and community engagement in the lives of our young men must be made. In conclusion, the underperformance of male students is one of the most urgent education crises in the Bahamas. The data is clear. Boys are being left behind. And this has serious consequences for our society. We have successfully championed education for girls, and now we must do the same for boys. This is not about competition. It is about ensuring that all students have an equal opportunity to succeed. The future of the Bahamas depends on the success of all our children. Remember, it is better to build a boy than to mend a man. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, let me say what a pleasure it is to be back home as a fellow Mingo and as a student of the then School of Social Sciences. I'm a student of public administration, and I've benefited from the resources of so many persons in this room. And I'd like to thank all of my professors, former professors. I also want to shout out the SJC giants in the room. The moderator is a giant, one of your professors, Dr. Turnquest, is a giant, and all the rest of you wish you were. So I'm really proud of that. And then finally, as a private departure, to just celebrate my youth worker, my youth leader. As a child growing up in the Bethlehem Baptist Church, Dr. Sterling McPhee, then Reverend McPhee, then Minister McPhee, then Youth Leader McPhee, had a major impact in my life, in my formation as a young Christian. And so I want to say how pleased and honored I am to share this platform with him and all of these amazing professionals. I would like to take my response from a different perspective. I think it's really time for us to dispense with the talk shop, I think, when we talk about, or when we look at addressing concerns, not just with young men or young boys in our country, but from the whole youth development perspective. I've had the privilege of serving in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture for 16 years, straddling youth development programs and initiatives of the Bahamas government and also the international community for that entire period, from youth in business, youth in international relations. I was responsible for partnering with agencies like Ministry of Health and National Security on matters of national youth policy development. And one of my responsibilities before leaving the Ministry of Youth was looking at this whole aspect of the development of the national youth policy, which was, at my time, with 16 years and almost 40 years at the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, the then Ministry of Community Affairs as a division of the Ministry of Education when it was first started, has really been the 9th version of the draft of the National Youth Policy, right? And so we're talking about a National Youth Policy that had yet to reach the table of the House of Assembly to even be debated. And I'm here now, and now left the Ministry of Youth, almost 10 years now, went into the church community for 5 years, went to Life the Key Foundation, now at BDB, post full-time church ministry. That's 6 years now, 7 years. And I worked in the Ministry of Youth for 16 years. So that's over 20 some odd years of the draft that I knew about, right? That I contributed to. And when you think about, of course, you're students, and for bachelor's degrees at the University of Bahamas, we write dissertations in case, I don't know if they change it, but Dr. Carolyn Rule did show and make me do one research paper to undefend it, as though I was doing a graduate degree. But we all understand the tone and tone of really research and the importance of data that's current as we use it to inform policy and decision making. And so we know that every 4 years almost or so, that data kind of stale dates. As generations advance and progress, the strategy and the manner in which we engage with them requires some change. However, data also teaches us that there's really nothing new under the sun, that really the way engagement strategy impacts people may change based on your generational outlook and You know, for example, millennials versus Generation Z or Y or whatever, you know, the way they would engage with you, the things that provides that tipping point for behavior change and all these other things regarding, you know, their advancement, what they're interested in the workplace, what they, if they want a pension versus give me my money now, or, you know, whatever. You know, society evolves as generations change, but really there's nothing new under the sun. And best practice is best practice wherever you go. And so with that I say, you know, just as much as things change and evolve and need to change and evolve, some things should really remain constant. I think those relate to, for example, our value structure, generally the expectation of leaders in our country and their conduct and deportment, our general expectation as a society in terms of our government and political leaders and their commitment of resource and priority for national concerns in our country. And I think that's where we have a major lapse. And I wanted to touch on 3 points in particular. First, I wanted to talk about the point of shifting goalposts. Now, when I was a young person growing up in the Bethlehem Baptist Church, I was a part of, if you're Baptist, you know about the Royal Ambassadors program, which was our Baptist version of the Boys Brigade, Girls Brigade, you know, and some of the Pathfinders in the Adventist Church is an example, right? And I remember when I became a teenager, all along as a young person, I'm working very hard to earn all of these badges and stuff. I want to be decorated like the older guys in RA. But the minute I hit 12, 13, and I'm old enough to go on the hike, I'm old enough to go canoeing and Lake Nancy and all of these things, the program begins to shift. The program changed. We don't do that no more. We don't buy those badges no more. Only thing would left is a little bit in the cupboard from the old times, right? But the program has really changed, and as a young person, for me, that was devastating. He was in the past, the youth pastor. Right, but as a young person, it was devastating for me because that rite of passage, which is really what it became, that aspiration to achieve, that goalpost, that something to reach and to accomplish, was removed. I no longer had access to it, right? And I think we have generated and created an expectation among people, young people in our country, young, all facets of, I mean, multi-generational. There are expectations of if I do this, I will get this. If I do this, I will get the other. If I work hard, I will achieve. But when you think of, for example, the cost of living in our country, when you think of what it costs to get a degree, how long it takes you to get a degree. I ended up college anonymous and left in the university. I had to tell them. But, right, of course, by some reasons of my own, some of my decisions, not on my good UB, right? But when we think generally about the direction in which our society is headed and how hard it is for the average young man to achieve and accomplish, right? There is so much to be considered. When we talk about the environment that we create for young people, young men, boys, to succeed and thrive and have good success. When we talk about the requirements of raising a family, I remember when I left the public service, I made that decision because I could not take care of a family on that salary. That did not mean I didn't like my job. I enjoyed my job. I did it for 16 years. I could have gone 30 more, right? But I had to go because at that juncture in my life, there's no way I could take care of this man's daughter on this salary. I had to go. And just the whole system, or this time you get an increment, or then it changed. Then the next time, you know, you got to take the exam, or then that changed. Then you need this qualification. Then you go get the qualification, and then they come back to, oh, you need this to, you know, enough. Let me move on and go where I possibly can do better. Right? And we see this same instability being featured prominently through all sectors of our society, not just for boys, right? And the Word of God says, the Reverend Hatton, it trickles down from the hair to the beard to the skirt and to the tail, not just in leadership, right? But also in the various layers of society, whatever's going on at the top, the shifting, the instability, the changing, you know, the decisions based on feeling instead of research, right? That kind of thing trickles right down through all sectors of our society, and we will then begin to see the instability in every area coming right down to affecting our boys. So that's my first point. The second there for me is a decaying moral posture of church and political leaders. I think sometimes we put in a little box and put in the corner because we don't want to call nobody name, or we don't want to talk with this one and that and the next, that we forget how much discovery learning, education students, I was first a student of education before a public admit, how much discovery learning plays an important part in the development of our boys. What they see, what they observe, what they feel and experience in their environment makes a major impact on their outlook in life, what they feel they can accomplish, how they feel they can contribute, what they feel they need to do to achieve. So if this leader is stealing and the drugs shipping in and this name getting called and all this happening, for them then, well, I could go to St. Road instead of going to UB and sitting up, I just drop my girl off to school, let her get a little degree so we can have someone with a stable job and good qualifications so we could wash up the money when I didn't make it, right? And then I don't go over here and hustle and do this the man's way. Because that is the example that I'm seeing. That's why they drive in that car. That's why they living in that house. That's why, because when I work hard and when I apply myself and when I go to BTVI and I get this little certificate and I get this job and I do this, this money ain't working for me. But for some reason, this leader who according to published records making little 60 grand can live like that. I could scrape one little 70 with one little alpha bag and I could live better than that. And so this whole view of what life could be for a child, because one thing that the district superintendent didn't tell you is we also have school statistics in our schools, and I won't speak as a expert in her area, but based on some information I've been exposed to in my research for the national policy, we have drug issues in our schools. Okay, we have sexual reproductive health issues in our schools. Children having sex. Children peddling dope in school. They are carriers in school. They're doing it in school. They're carrying weapons. They're doing it in school. So just how I talked about these values and this bit of instability that we're seeing at the top of our country, whatever, right? We see that also in these activities that are in general society, right in the microcosm, that we call this safe space where children can learn and evolve. They're learning by discovery, all kind of things, by observation, and they're bringing it to the microcosm. That's my second point. Thirdly, I do believe that, and I say this with the greatest respect, in my whole public service career, I've only spoken truth to power to ministers of government in private. You rebuke leaders in private and then let them correct or not correct themselves in public, but you dare not. And so this is quite a departure for me to ever talk about any kind of political whatever. But I think, speak the truth, speak it as, of course. But I do believe that we have a major political interference and mismanagement of the state's response to national youth development in our country. And I say youth broadly because that includes education, social reform, etc. All of that is encapsulated there, right? But for 16 years, I can speak of one program, for example, while working in the Ministry of Youth, that had the same mandate, same objective. The brand changed every time an administration changed. The logo changed, the color changed. The group that the program was made for or was designed for changed. You know, the engagement strategy. This one was pushed because it was, you know, the baby of this particular political organization, and then it changed because this one come, it's good, it's serving some purpose, we got to stop, review, and cancel. Then we can start it up again under a new brand to make it look like it's, and you just playing with people. Yes. You're playing with lives. You are putting on pause and pressing start on the lives, the outlook, the energy, the effervescence of people, right? And I think it's really time out for that. I think politicians have really forgotten that their responsibility is not to run the public service. Their responsibility is to make policy and allow public officers to run the public service. But in the absence of policy, politicians got to make decisions. And so what we've found is there has been a major decline of the creation of policy. We're not hearing that in our parliament anymore. We're not hearing those kinds of discussions for the creation of structure and an environment for engagement with the community, for programs and other activities of central government, how it should be impacting community to really fall into place the way it should. And so people are flying by the seat of their pants, they're going based on how they feel, they're going with, whatever their constituent tell them, and really not taking advantage of the use of the research resource. Getting your ear to the ground and really talking with those who you're impacting to see how it's really impacting their life or whether or not it is, right? And so I close by saying on those 3 points that I believe that we could perhaps take 4 actions to address the challenge. 1, the National Youth Policy Agenda regarding youth development must become priority, and the brightest and best must be assigned to this mandate. We can't treat the Ministry of Youth and the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Social Services and all of these agencies of the government responsible for the well-being of our people so casually anymore. We need the brightest and best there. The best of our country's resources need to be placed there. The greatest amount of funding should be placed there, because it is only within those agencies that we can really fix the social issues that our country has. If we fix the social issues, then the education, the national security, the foreign service, and all of these other areas that make up service to our nation can then take the kind of shape, because people have the kind of moral grounding and foundation that they need to thrive in our country. Secondly, we must unify our national approach to youth development, and all key partners and gatekeepers need to unify in this effort. And that starts at government, to church, civil and civic society. Everyone must get involved, and the engagement strategy needs to be uniform, the response uniformed across the board. Okay, we can't do some here and the others doing their own different thing in different areas. And finally, we need to provide the appropriate resource allocation in all sectors. And that's not just required of the government and assigning the money properly in budget, but in our churches, right? In our churches, in these community organizations, we need to see the appropriate and proper allocation of budget. And finally, we must engage research-based strategy. No more flying by the seat of your pants. Do the research, and if you're not prepared to research, you should not posture yourself to do the work. And that's important. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Protocol being established, I stand on that. I thank you all for the invitation, and I'm here to speak on your topic, to give my perspective. I've been reminded already 4 times, 5 minutes. So, Dr. Swan, I am setting my timer to 4 minutes, so that when it goes off, I know I have 1 minute to wrap it. So with that being said, the topic is the realities of empowering the male child in our village. Again, my name is Derry Omika. I am the chairman and program director for MOT Squared, Men of the Day, Men of Tomorrow. It's not MOT, it's MOT Squared. Okay? Thank you. And when I look at your topic, Brother Ron, you don't mind coming back a little further from me, please, so I can have a quick exit. Because some things I'm going to say, and they cause a riot. Okay? Because it says to reality, which means to give the true state. And then we talk about empowering and the village. Let me give you a quick rundown of MOT Squared. MOT Squared is a mentoring program, as mentioned, for boys from the age of 8 through men through 25. The program starts off in the primary school. That's where we get our mentees from. The programs, the mentees are selected by the administrators of the school based on 4 conditions. The first condition is that you're looking for males that where there's lack of a father or positive role model. That's the first condition. The second condition is those that have excessive absenteeism. The third condition is that those that are challenging with the grades below the required recommendation. And then the fourth recommendation is those that seems to be at risk to gangs. So we're not looking for the brightest and the best. We're looking for the at-risk, the males that we're talking about today. And we have 6 pillars. We have, and the pillars are designed to create what we call a pure, P-U-R-E, pose, P-O-I-C-E, mind, the complete male. And the pillars are the leadership pillar, the sports appreciation pillar, the physical or personal development pillar, entrepreneurial pillar, and the spiritual consciousness pillar. And we are in 5 schools at this time. We have 3 primary schools. We transition with our mentees. They enter at the primary school level, and we transition with our mentees. I'd like to thank Dr. McPhee for assisting us, because we are now in the CH Reid School, because our pilot school was E.P. Roberts, and because E.P. Roberts is a feeder program for CH Reid, we are now with our 7th graders at the CH Reid, and Dr. McPhee is so accommodating, give us a room that was solely for us at this time, and I hope it maintained that way. Thank you, Dr. McPhee. With that being said, I'd like to mention that, you know, the reality of the things of the empowering of males, it's bad. We all know that. We read the statistics. We know it is bad. But I guarantee it's worse than you think. When you get into the trenches and you really see how it is, then you realize it's bad. But then what we have concluded in Mark Square is that it's bad because we have a parenting problem, not a child problem, not a parenting problem. We have a parenting problem. Give you an example of the parenting problem. From the 3 primary schools that we got, the 5 schools that we are in actually, we had 118 students that were recommended. Out of those 118 students that were recommended, 92 actually attended at least 1 session. Out of those 92, shoots, I got 1 minute left already. Out of that 92, you had only 78% total, an engagement, of 47%, because the parents did not support it. Now, one unique aspect of this program is that we meet every day, or a minimum of 6 hours a week with the boys. At the primary school, we meet Monday through Friday, and at CH Reid, we meet from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Our challenge is, I call it M&M, man and money. That's our challenge. But let me get back to this topic quickly. Empowering. The boys are empowered. Every male, every young man is empowered. The problem is, he is not empowered with the authority or the power that we desire. That's why our crime rate is increasing. They are empowered to do crime. That's the reality of it. Okay? Another thing is that the village, what village? We don't have a village. So how can the village raise the children when we don't have a village? We have a communities. The village I grew up in, we didn't have borders. I grew up right in Yellow School, AID, opposite Hasty Gas Station. That was my village. In that village, the houses were like in a U. There were no borders. And the oldest person was responsible for everyone in that yard. We live among Haitians, and we live among Bahamians. And I didn't realize that Haitians were bad until I went to Yellow River Primary School. And they say, carry your Haitian self. Because we all lived together, we all ate what was cooked. We call our Haitian mommy. And guess what we call our mothers? Mommy. So we did not discriminate against nobody in the village. But now that we have communities, and we have our borders up, our fence and so forth, we don't even know our neighbors' names. What village? Can I go on one more minute? One more minute. The problem is that we have, like I said, they are empowered. In Mott Square, we do not allow women to speak to our boys. The reason for that is this. At home, who's there? Woman, because the father and the uncles, the grandfathers, the males are not there. Then they go to school, other than CHRs, of course. Who are there? My wife is a principal at Sybil Strong. She's in charge. The only males that are there is the gardener. No, the PE teacher's not even a male. Is the gardener and the security guy. That's the only males that are there. In the community, there are no males. In the village I grew up in, there were males in the community. When we went to the barber shop, only males. Now when I go to the barber shop, females. And my wife forced me to change my barber because, I get to relax when she be rubbing my ball. So she let change. But our boys are only seeing strong women, which is by right a great thing. I agree with Brother Dowd. No, not Brother Dowd, sorry, Sister Dowd. The suggestion is not, to reduce our females, but let's rise our males to the level of the females. Because like I remind my mentees when I speak to them, and one of our goals is to increase the enrollment of UB from 80 females to 20% males to 50-50, because like I advise our mentees, you don't want to live with a dumb woman. So therefore, we need our women to maintain that level, and you just got to rise to the level that they are at to be their equal. That's all. So this is the solution I have. Love and time. We need to go back to the village concept, because I don't think we're going back to a village. But we need to go back to the village concept. And hopefully, Dr. Strawn will allow me to elaborate on this a little bit more with this question. But love and time is what we need. Now I'll stop there.
Good evening, everybody. I sure won't be as long as my counterpart here. He could have had 2 more of my minutes, so I'm going to just speak to my background. I know you've heard the bio, and it sounds so glorious, but I didn't come from that glorious bio. I come from a background where my mom had 10 children. 8 were high school dropouts, so education was not, unlike my good friend Dr. Strawn. Come from a 3rd generation of education. I'm the first in the family. And so, watching everybody drop out of school, I didn't see entrepreneurship, I didn't see education. What I saw was 2 people who tried to do the best that they could with what they had. My dad had a less than high school education. I thought he dropped out of primary school. And my mom barely finished high school to start having children. And so I had to tell myself at an early age, I didn't want that to be my destiny. I didn't want to be a high school dropout, and I didn't want to just start having children at an early age. And so I decided to let education be my path. And so education saved my life, and education brought me here, but I didn't come from education. Then I have this unique thing where I have the education and the practicing business. I didn't come from a business background. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working alongside my wife in her business, and then I've been a mentor to one of my younger friend who owns a business as his business advisor. And so I got both worlds, the education and the business acumen, by making it my duty to get something that I was not afforded when I was a child. To get something that nobody pushed me into education, nobody pushed me into business. I had to tell myself, I need this for me. I need this for my sons and daughters. I need this to be an example for the rest of the persons that are going to come up behind me. And so what you see in here is a product of a self-determination and a self-drive. And of course, God is always at the head of things, but you still have to make some decision on your own. And then one of the other thing, and I'll pass the mic on, is that as much as they criticize the church and lambaste the church plays a very instrumental role in our young people and our young men. And Pastor Mars will always say this, God rest his soul. The people who are on the streets who are doing the criminal activities, they're not the people from the church. No, they're not. And so the church has fostered a level of mentorship that has helped and saved a lot of young people. And if you talk to all of those guys in music and the young people that are doing well, like my colleague to the far left, the church has molded them into becoming what it is that they're doing today. And so I would end with this. As young people, have a drive and a determination for what you want. Don't have an excuse. And as young men, don't have an excuse. I could have said my father dropped out of school, my mother didn't have the education, and so I didn't have it. I could have said, you know what, all of my siblings except one dropped out of high school, that's why I don't have it. But at the end of the day, I knew what I wanted, and I went after it. And so I encourage you, go after the things that you want in life and do not accept excuses. Excuses will not take you to your destination. Thank you.
They saved the best for last. All right. So, you know, when I came in, I said, look, I'm among all these men. You know, it's raining men. It's wonderful. Okay. Looking at the topic, and I'd like to thank Dr. Stubbs for inviting me to speak on the panel. Yeah, we know what time that was when I got the invite. But I started doing the studies, trying to pull the data, because data drives me into making decisions. And as some of my students who are sitting out there, they know I'm data-driven. And there was only one piece of research, one piece of Bahamian research that I was able to find talking about male achievement here in the Bahamas from 2002. That's saying something. So those of us who have to do some research to move up the chain here in UB, take a look at the male research. That study was, and my colleague here went ahead and mentioned it, Minnis, Coleridge, and Ward. They talked about the concern about the absent fathers. They talked about the need for paternal love and support, and concerns with reading, motivation, and attitudes towards learning. So I'm going to talk about it in two prongs. Achievement, that's the education side of my house, and then I'm going to talk about the mental health, that's the psychology part of me. So with the achievement, as mentioned before, was how girls are outperforming based on the national exams, 2018 and 2023, was all that I was able to find from the Tribune. On how girls are outperforming boys with the BJC exams. The other thing that I came across looking at it was that Hattie did a meta-analysis, well not a, several, on 300 million students worldwide participated in this. And the statistics showed, as you were mentioning, suspensions have a negative impact on student performance, student achievement. So does, and this didn't come up with the data, was repeating. When students repeat and when students move between schools, it has a negative impact on student achievement. What, however, has a positive impact is math programs, phonics instruction, and class discussions. Now, unfortunately, class discussions can't yield positive results for our male children because Richard Reed found out that our boys don't do as well with oral discussion. Language skills, girls have outperformed boys in that language, that reading and language arts area. So class discussion, however, having a positive impact, it doesn't include our boys with that positive piece. The other person that I'd like to talk about is Dr. Nadine Harris Burke. She did a research on adverse childhood experiences. Actually, she didn't do the research, but she put it out there from Kaiser Permanente and CDC, where they found out that people who have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences end up having more learning disorders. They're more suicidal, ADHD, and also not just the academic and the mental health concerns, but also health concerns. They don't live as long as people who don't have as many adverse childhood experiences. And adverse childhood experiences, things that like natural disasters, hurricanes, violence. My students did in my ed psych class a research where I asked them to watch 20 minutes of cartoons, any cartoon you want, 20 minutes of reality TV, 20 minutes of a video game, and 20 minutes of the news. Just watch 20 minutes and see how many times you see verbal and nonverbal aggression. And we talked about what that was, verbal and nonverbal aggression. Well, can you guess what they found out? Can you guess which one of those categories? Cartoons, video games, reality shows, the news. What do you think they found out? Which one was more violent? Reality shows. Reality shows. I didn't ask them to watch a specific cartoon or a specific show, so we were just going over and getting a feel, but the reality shows far outweighed all the other areas, which was pretty, reality shows. Well, it's not just the reality shows, it's all the social media that they're exposed to. Though, because our parents are giving children devices to entertain themselves in church.
I know.
Yes, say it again, Father. In church. They're doing it when they go to the restaurants. They're putting that phone behind them while they're driving. There's not a lot of communication, not a lot of discussions. This is what our boys need, is that communication and discussion. Put the devices down. Because they are seeing a lot and experiencing a lot of violence. Richard Reeves, when he did his book on, I forgot, Dr. Nadine Harris's book is The Deepest Well. Excellent, excellent. Jamaican is her roots, and she's now the Surgeon General of California. We go far, don't we? Richard Reeves did a book on boys and men, and he found out that boys are 1 year behind girls. His recommendation is that we start boys out 1 year later in school, in order to level the playing field, making it equal. The other thing that noted in the achievement for education is that our boys are dropping out of school in 3rd grade. Not physically. They're disengaged by 3rd grade. We've lost them. So it's too late, and there were no GLAD exams in the Tribune. We miss out if we don't catch them early, before 3rd grade. After 3rd grade, it's too late. I shouldn't say it's too late, it's harder. Warren Rhodes talked about resiliency. He's out of Baltimore. And he said mentoring is very important for our children to be resilient. So take a look at those programs as one of my recommendations. Now, let's talk about how our children, more boys get diagnosed with ADHD. That's because we got too many women in the classrooms, especially at the primary levels. We really need to advocate for more males at in our schools, period. As the educators. And I told you to say the best for that. And then, with that being said, the primary school is the emphasis. Let's start them early with the males in the classrooms. Being the educators, not the paraprofessionals, not the aides, but the actual teachers. So ADHD is one of the biggest, according to Hattie, is the most detrimental diagnosis that our children, and particularly our boys, are being diagnosed with, when in fact they may not be ADHD. Their deficit is teacher deficit, male teacher deficit. The television was another detriment to student achievement, according to Hattie, and lack of sleep. Self-efficacy had a positive impact, and that's Bandler's theory on self-efficacy, had a positive impact on student achievement. So as many opportunities as you can get children to feel good about themselves and what they can do is important. And then I've got the statistics on Dr. Nadine Burke's ACE scores on adverse childhood experiences. They have more chances of being depressed, 4.5 times more. They have more suicidal ideation, 12 times more, when their parents have ACE scores of 4 and more. Alcoholics, 8 times more. So if we can catch, and we said that parents are the concern, but if we can look at parents and see what we can intervene, that is another prong to helping to correct what's going on. Mental health is more important than academics. Yes. Mental health is more important than academics. We have to teach now social skills in a very systematic way, just like we do reading and math. It's just as important, if not more important. Our love and care and concern, our social intelligence has gone down. Emotional intelligence has gone down. We've really seen it since the pandemic. Remember, that's another stressor in life, another traumatic event in our lives was the pandemic. Another thing that brings our ACE scores down. And now we have a new one, AQ, adversity intelligence. Adversity, how children deal with these stresses and bounce back. What tools are we giving them to bounce back? My recommendations with all of this, and boy do I have a long list. This is where I want to spend my time. I said, I have 7 minutes. I have 7 minutes. Here's 7 minutes, she said. Increase motivation, include competitiveness, make it deliberate and be intentional about including competitiveness. Single-sex classrooms or schools. Focus on boys reading using male role models. That improves reading scores. Reduce and monitor social media, TV, and those video games. That's the root of all evil. Sleep, exercise, mindfulness, nutrition, psychotherapy, and having a trusted adult where boys can feel safe, stable, and nurtured is going to help them. We already got our male mentoring program, cooperative grouping, national exams. National exams, we really need to work on the reliability, validity, fairness, and equity of them. And as mentioned before, restorative practices will also assist our boys. And that moving of the goalposts that you talked about earlier, maybe we need to look at grandfathering some programs rather than keep on moving the goalposts. Those are my recommendations. Mental health is what we really have to focus in before we can tackle achievement.
3 minutes. Yes, very quickly, honored to be here. John Darrell will appreciate what I'm about to say. As a Royal Ambassador, I will do my best to become a well-informed, responsible foreign policy. For all people to learn how the message of Christ is carried around the world, to work with others in sharing Christ, and to keep myself clean and healthy in mind and body. I taught him well. I simply say that to say as a collective, the social fabric of our village, Mr. Maycock said we don't have a village anymore, has certainly changed tremendously. What I cited to you was what we call the ambassador's pledge that we would have learned. Now for me it was at the age of 12. He would have come a little later on. But a part of the village was an extended arm of the family, and that was at church. And I heard the comment being made about the church, how valuable it is in our community. The social fabric of our society has changed. What's raising our children now are not parents, not mentors, but rather the social media. And we've heard just now what's being broadcasted in the social media. As a society, and our boys in particular, they are ones who are being impacted in such a negative way. I want to leave this scripture with you. It's a very powerful scripture, but it speaks volumes as it relates to God the Father speaking to his Son. We all know this passage. It says, this is at the baptism of Jesus. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. There are two things that male need from a mentor or a father figure. One is identity. God said concerning Jesus, this is my beloved Son. In our homes, there's a lacking with the presence of fathers. And because of that, there will be a lack of identity. If there is no identity, you will try to find out who you are. And in trying to do that, you will try to discover who you are. The second thing that God made in that particular passage, he says, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Interesting enough to know that Jesus had not yet begun his ministry, but he affirmed who he was. Every male is seeking affirmation. Every male. And they will seek that wherever they can find it. If they find it in the gangs, they will go and seek it. If they find it at home, and always remember, home is the first school. It is the first school. So if that school is not built on proper foundation, proper structure, then our students, our boys, our boys in particular, they will seek elsewhere to find their identity, and they will seek affirmation from something or someone. Masculinity is being redefined in our society. What it used to be a real man, and understanding how to respect women, respect females, that is no longer what we see in our society. Why? Lack of identity, lack of affirmation. We need to, as a collective, we need to find out what we can do as a collective so that we can help our young men. That's one of the realities of why it is so challenging to have our men, our boys, being empowered.
Good afternoon, all. Very happy to have been invited to participate in this panel, and I want to just commend our speakers for taking the time, and the passion is obvious in all of them if they've spoken. Ms. Darville led us off talking about the very, very concerning statistics of male underperformance. and I have questions after each of you, of course. Speaking, Mr. Darville talked about the fact that the National Youth Policy has had 9 lives, but still hasn't been implemented. Mr. Maycock has a wonderful mentoring program, and one of the things he spoke about is the fact that we have a real parenting problem. And he's hoping I will ask him about the village concept. I will. Mr. Glenville Davis really told his life story of having bucked the trend. And that's certainly an inspiring one. Julie Tynes-Jones spoke to some of the very important research that's going on. I certainly couldn't agree with him more that we need to have a great emphasis on health and mental health. You might want to start by having psychology taught in school. Just a thought. And then we conclude with the principal of my alma mater. I went to C.H. Reeves, Mr. McPhee, and I got a feeling he and I went to college at the same time.
Yes, sir.
I don't forget a face. Yes, sir. Very proud of you. Talking about the two key things, identity and affirmation. I want to just acknowledge Ambassador Pinder in the room, and also a national hero of this country, Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson. Given her life to trying to help us live peacefully one with another and protect women from violence.
Yes.
And violence against women has its roots in the trouble we have with our men.
Yes, yes.
And she has become now at this stage very much concerned with focusing on that. And she and I have had our share of conversations about it. I'm a father of three sons. And before I ask any questions, I would just share one or two very important things that I've learned, and I would pass on to any of you who become parents. Many of you are young and you're not there yet. But certainly I would say that one of the best things I ever did with my sons was that every single evening I read with my sons. Just 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. At first they couldn't read, so I was doing the reading. And eventually, they would join me, and eventually they were doing the reading. 15 minutes every day. And every single one of them was reading at the age of 3. And the ability to be literate is the foundation for learning. And so, and of course, you pick books that were fun, that emphasize the phonics and learning how words are built and how they work. And what happened was they enjoyed reading. And that's the key, enjoying learning. Someone talked about discovery and the importance of that. But if we can't figure out how to ensure boys and young men enjoy school, forget about it. Forget about it. All right. So I just wanted to share that, and then of course also too, I think we I'll stop there. So I want to ask my first question of Ms. Darville. You gave the analysis around really the dysfunction, but I wanted to know, and I also point out that Professor Tynes-Jones pointed out how little research there's been, and I certainly want to challenge the faculty of the School of Education and of Social Sciences that we must be a school, we must have a college not just of training teachers and social workers, but we have to do research.
Yes.
We have to become a college of research, because you can't have policy, Mr. Darville, if you don't have, as you pointed out, data, right? So I guess what I would ask is, what
do we know what the biggest predictor of successful male performance is? So we know about absenteeism, we know, about suspensions, but have we studied or are we able to triangulate what predicts that a boy will actually do well in school? Do we know now? I mean, with the same statistical,
I don't know if we know exactly, but I would say that my master's degree is in literacy and not literature. And in doing my studies for that, it was me that did the study of the junior high school, and from, it was 2013, I had this interest in why, as a teacher throughout my experience, homogeneously grouped classes seem to be female heavy if you're a top student, a top class, and male heavy if you're in the lower stream. And in trying to find out what was happening, I learned that from very early on, a lot of our male children did not go to preschool. And so you speak about teaching and reading with your boys. Culturally, it was not like boys are supposed to be tough and rugged, and they should be outside riding a bike and climbing a tree. And the focus on education has not been there. In that research, I found boys who had not seen a book until they entered primary school. And the research tells us that a child at age 2 or 3 from a middle socioeconomic kind of home environment, a home that you presented where parents are literate, parents are modeling reading, has a vocabulary of over 2,000 words more than a child who has not been exposed to reading. Like you, my husband complimented me, and our home was an inviting space for learning. And so I have a son, and my house was labeled. The window, the word window was there. Door had the word door. The knob had knob. The refrigerator had refrigerator. So that when my children saw the object, they could put a word with the object. That's what it's like when you come from that kind of exposure. But for so many of our children who are coming from the lower socioeconomic kind of environment where parents are not literate, they can't afford to pay for preschool, and that's why I mentioned the government's effort in providing preschool, early childhood experience, either through government-funded preschools or a subsidy that the government provides. But I think that that's one of the major reasons why we're not seeing the level of success, mainly in boys, but in both sexes, that our children are not being exposed to literacy at a very early age. And when you fall behind, it is very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult to catch up.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I remember when I was raising my sons, I discovered a DVD series called Your Baby Can Read. So that literally before your child could form words, they could associate the thing with the signs, the symbols, basically. Right? And so
McDonald's golden arches.
Yeah, but instead hippopotamus and elephant, they can tell you what those were before. So, so again, the solutions are there. So the question I have for you, Mr. Dowell, what, from your standpoint, what difference would an actual policy make?
Okay, so very good question. I think we've heard it addressed here this evening that by at least about 3 of us panelists, that a major response as a corrective action is to unify the approach to development. We have heard also from this panel this evening that addressing education or the issues that we have with male performance in education can only begin first about addressing the social concerns associated with young boys, right? So if we can unify our national approach from government down to civil society, there is a mandate by the authority of the nation, by the country, that this is the direction that we're going based on research. This is the direction we're going with regard national development. If you want funding from government, this is the direction that we're going. If you want a license to run a youth organization, this is the direction we're going. If you want international C4 certification or whatever from USAID or whomever, well not USAID anymore, but anyhow, other international organizations to get grant funding or whatever for the Bahamas because of our national policy position, these international organizations have committed resources to us in this regard. We're going in this direction because over time, as we each together beat down this issue in this direction, we're going to all arrive to the point that we need to go. And so if I may give an example of what the response has been, I mean, it's been so crazy. So you have the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture that has been the central authority of government responsible for national youth development. And instead of the resource, the empowerment, the policy, and everything being brought to this centralized authority, we have the creation of the National Training Agency over here. We have SPDC over here. We have the Ministry of National Security doing youth work here. And get this, none of those agencies have job descriptions of their staff, for their staff, that require qualifications for dealing with social development matters or dealing with young people. Okay? You cannot expect for a police to address young people from a social development standpoint if their training is in keeping the law and enforcing orders of the court, whatever. That is not their job. How could you require somebody in labor to do what a social worker should be doing? Yes. Or somebody in national security, they're supposed to keep the prison door locked at the prison. All right? Call the youth worker, call the Ministry of Education official, call the social service worker, and really, the most recent version of this collection of resource towards the proper development and socialization of our people was really urban renewal. And I'm talking urban renewal 1.0. Dr. Desiree Cox's urban renewal. And as a young officer, I was a part of that. And that was the closest we had ever gotten to health, social services, education, youth, and even the international community coming to one place for the development of the community. And there was great response by the community. But we are now instead pulling it all over the place and no policy. So flying by your seat of your pants, no policy, and people who don't have that particular training for that kind of work being accorded authority and responsibility to do it. And that's why we're going everywhere and going nowhere at the same time.
Same time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just want to say shout out to Dr. Carolyn Rowe, that was my professor of public administration. I'm sure she's very proud of me.
She should be, she should be. I want to ask Mr. Baycock, first of all, your mentoring program sounds exciting, sounds fantastic. I'd like to learn more personally about it, how I could help. But I'd like to, you wanted an opportunity to elaborate on the village concept. I'm giving you that opportunity now, so please. What's possible, realistic and possible, that could have a transformational impact on even the 47% who remain engaged?
Dr. Strawn, we welcome you. We need you. Because like I said, our problem is M&M, mind and money. Everybody like yourself, everybody like yourself, males like yourself, oh, this is a wonderful program. This is a game changer. This is what we need for the Bahamas.
What is that?
Can you give some time? Oh, I'm busy. Can you make a donation? I'll get back to you.
You gotta say like yourself, though. I mean, I'm speaking for the voice down there. You ain't gonna be like that,
and I would like to
pull the square. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
But I'd like to get back to the projector, as you mentioned. There is a projector that Mott Scratch follows. And the projector that Mott Scratch follows for a successful male child, especially successful male, is that from the age or before the age of 8, around 8, 7, any male child that spent a minimum on average of 6, a minimum of 8 hours, but an average of 6 and above hours per week in the presence of a positive male role model ends up successful. And that's a Pew Research. The problem is we don't have the time. My son, Dario Perez Arthur Rose Chester, Emmanuel Laycock the First, was a Merit Scholar recipient. And I was so proud. And then I read this research because we put a strategic plan together. I said, okay, he's successful. Let me see how many hours they spent with him. And I started to write down, oh, that's intentional hours now, not just hours. That's intentional hours. Means you sit down, you plan to read for 15 minutes, you plan to dialogue. We all know what intentional means, right? So yeah, these are educators. And I started to write down my intentional time per week that I spent with my son. Now, he didn't go, didn't go through all of my bio, but I was a band director for 15 years for the Bahama Youth Brass Band. I also directed a movie. I was involved in almost everything inside the church you could talk about. For the males, that is. I was busy. And I started to write down the intentional time that I spent with my son a week. And believe it or not, I came up with about 2 hours. 2 hours. But yet he was successful at this point. And I can truly say, this is my beloved son, whom I've been pleased with. But we had a village. Grammy, Annie, Mooney, they were all female, but guess what? Daddy was there. And when he got a place, it was always like the village I raised up in. My father was in there. He was in the home, but he was always at work. Because we had 12 children. So he had to work double job. And therefore, when he got home, it was time for him to sleep. I don't know how he slept because he had 16 children before he died, so I don't know when he slept. But the point I'm trying to make is this, Dr. Strawn.
He's a hard-working man.
The point I'm trying to make, Dr. Strawn, is this. Whenever we got out of hand with anyone, like I say, the mommies, any of the mommies inside the yard, anyway, they would always say, wait till your father gets home. And that was in my house. Wait till your daddy gets home. That means a lot. But the predictor is 8 hours, intentional time, in the presence of a positive male role model. Now,
I gotta get to some other folks.
Okay.
So yeah, we wanna. All right, thank you so much for that, though. Professor Davis, you said you really bucked the trend. But I know for myself, I grew up without a father. But as the principal pointed out, you're going to find your role model. You're going to go seeking him. It'll be in the street, it'll be in the church, or whatever. For me, it was, when I went to CH Reeves, they were actually, I counted about 6 male, I don't know if they got 6 male teachers still. They had 6 back when I was there. They had a woodwork teacher, a music teacher, art teacher. They were men. But I could look back to my coaches, I could look back to the priests in my church, I could look back to an uncle I had, I could look back to older brothers. Father figures, you will have them, good or bad. So I guess I want to know from you, where did you find the role models?
My role models were in the church. I didn't have it in my family. I didn't have it in the neighborhood. And like most of us growing up, we had a lot of women around and they did their thing, but it was not the same thing as having a male figure. And so I had to get it from in the church. And even going into adulthood, where after I became a man, I still need, and I'm learning like years later, that I had a daddy issue. My daddy was in the home, but he was like your dad. He was always gone, so he didn't teach me nothing, you know, deliberately. And so I had to seek my role models and my mentors outside of the home, outside of the family. And the church was that place for me.
All right,
Yes.
thank goodness. I wanna direct a question to Professor Tynes Jones. And this is about curriculum. So I think we have to, if we're serious about this, we have to attack this from a myriad of directions. And one of my biggest problems with grades 1 through 12 or K through 12 is, to what level is the education actually addressing the real world problems that our children have? And I guess the question I would ask is, how is our curriculum focused on emotional intelligence and resilience? Because, you know, I was a head boy, I was a top student, I was smart, I was bookish, but honestly, school did not prepare me for life. It did not. Okay? Not the things that are going to happen to life. Someone's going to break your heart. You know, your mommy will die. You'll try and fail at something. You'll be rejected for something that you know that you should be able to do. The things that happen to all of us. But where is the space in school? Is there such a curriculum somewhere in the world that we can look at? What do we do about that?
That's a lot of questions.
And you got 4 minutes.
It was about maybe 2008, the Ministry of Education invited me to come home and do an administrative conclave. And I addressed restorative practices, which deals with the social and emotional intelligence. And I don't know, once I left, you know, they flew me in, I spoke, and flew back to Georgia. I don't know if they took that restorative practice and actually implemented it in the schools. Looking at T.G. Glover, that I came back and looked at restorative practices for them, they didn't. So I don't know if it was just for T.G. Glover or was it a bigger picture. But the social and emotional intelligence, there are curriculums that are out there that are pretty solid, and we can definitely make them equitable for not just our males, for females, but also our culturally different as well as our special needs populations. That can happen. The adversity would also be included within those social and emotional curriculum. But we have to be intentional. It has to be on purpose. It has to be systematic, just like reading and math. And as I shared with Hattie's research, the phonics programs and the math programs are very helpful for student achievement. And you're talking about the assessment person in the School of Education, and that's why I mentioned the national exams are not quite equitable, reliable, or valid, as I have seen over the years from my COB days teaching here in 2000 to now. They remain the same with quite a lot of concerns that I have. This is the instrument that we are making life decisions for children at the BGCSE level, whether they're going to be able to have go off to college, whether they're going to be able to have a government job, and we're making that with flawed assessments. So it's not just I said you ask a big question, I got a lot of answers. But that's it, yeah.
Thank you so much. Very good, okay. So I'm gonna direct, I have 2 more questions and then I will open it up. Before I go to Principal McPhee, I wanna go back to Ms. Dodd. And I wanna ask, to what extent is the ministry trying out currently creating homogeneous groups in a different way on the basis of gender? In other words, to what extent can we find in our schools now all male classes where they get a different kind of experience, where they can be together and maybe have a male instructor. Are we trying that at all in the schools today? Is there a school? I remember there used to be a school doing some of it. Is it happening? And are we seeing any results that make any difference in this?
I won't say that it's policy from the level of the ministry, but there at the level of the school there is a level of autonomy that principals can use to make these kinds of decisions. I'm not aware of that in any of the schools in the district that I presently supervise, but I do know that when I worked as an administrator at H.O. Nash Junior High School, we had an all-male class. Even when I worked as a teacher at the D.W. Davis Junior High School, it was almost like a self-contained class. The challenge, however, is manning. It takes a particular kind of individual, and as I reflect, listen to Dr. Tynes Jones, I said, wow, do we need a curriculum, or do we just need to recondition the people that are in front of the children? Because we can achieve a lot of this through just the experiences that students have while in school. The restorative practice, it's not something that is practiced, even though we're trying to push it. It's because people want retribution. They don't want to resolve issues in an understanding way, a compassionate way. You bothered me, you injured me, I want retribution. And so we're at a point where we almost have to recondition the people, the community, the society, because a lot of what we need to do culturally, we're not there.
I want to acknowledge Ms. Bain, was my music teacher in elementary school. Columbus Primary, she's sitting in the front row. So thank you. Thank you for being a wonderful teacher and for your years of service. This last question that I have is for Principal McPhee. You've chosen a career in education, as have I. The question I have, which I think is the million-dollar question, is how do we get more males to choose teaching as a career?
Mr. Strawn, I can answer that in 2 seconds. Give them more money.
So I assume you mean pay the male teachers more than the female teachers. I'm just playing. All right. But surely I think I would imagine that though I support that, there must be a way for the Ministry of Education and the school education to focus on recruitment, to attract that as really as something of national importance, and that there must be ways to make that experience a rich one and a rewarding one, even if overall the pay of teachers doesn't get increased, right? If there's a will, there's a way, would be what I would say. I'll open it up. If there are any questions in the audience. Dean, you make a way? Yes.
Good afternoon, all. Not so much a question, but a comment. I was listening to Dr. Tynes Jones and some of the others talk about this whole notion of social emotional intelligence being taught in schools, restorative practices, etc. I had an experience this week. I'm supervising a student on teaching practice right now. One of the things I said to her was, you're so unemotional with the children. I said, you just teach it. The students, you don't thank them, you don't commend them. I mean, it's like you're disconnected from your students. As I was thinking in my mind, what do we need to do in the School of Education by way of our curriculum, in the training of our teachers? Because if the teachers don't have it in the schools, they can't pass it on to the children. And so I challenge Chair Swan, are you here?
I'm right here.
Yeah, maybe we need to revisit our curriculum to see how
we can incorporate that into our teacher education program. Thank you.
Now, I want to be fair. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Good afternoon, panelists, and indeed you all did a good job. My question is directed towards the Ministry of Education part of it. In school, we are taught at the university level to, in the classroom, it's fluid, the environment is constantly changing, and we need to implement differentiated strategies in teaching. And we know that all students have different levels because the classes are mixed. Why is it that our national exam is only geared towards, and this is my belief, one type of differentiated strategy? Why is it the way that we teach is not the way that we test? Because that would level the playing field a little better for males who are more, we learn, hands-on. And if they're not challenged in the classroom, where it's boring for them, because we're taught to make the class interesting by making it student-centered and more hands-on for them. But when they get to take the exam, it's more writing and academic, and they're not getting there because it's flying over their head. Why aren't our exams created in a way that it assesses their ability differently?
The exams are different because there's a different there's a curriculum in the school and a different curriculum for testing. But I would say that those practical subjects do have a practical component. So if students are in carpentry, they get to use those practical components in carpentry. Same thing with food nutrition. If they're cooking, they're sewing. So that skill is still transferred. Now, the math and those, again, very theoretical, but in the practical areas, they do get to demonstrate those skills.
I understand what you're saying, that's just practical. But when we're teaching across the whole spectrum of different subjects, we still have to be creative in the way that we teach it. We may have in our class lower students, high flyers, middle flyers, right? And we now have to create our lesson plans based on those three different levels and getting them to understand, to teach one topic, So, and they're tiered. So why is it in certain exams they aren't basic tiered? Because it's in...
They are tiered as well. There are questions that you could almost eliminate who will get, and that's how you get your grading as well. I won't speak specifically to BGCSE because I'm not an examiner for BGCSE, but I know that in examinations, there are questions that you know your low achievers should be able to answer. Your middle achievers, your high achievers are able to answer. I see Ms. Turnquest, who is an examiner, wants to add to the conversation.
Who was an examiner once. The questions are structured from different levels. So most exams, when you first start off those exams, those questions would be written so that just about everyone, if you were in a class and paying attention, should be able to answer these. And then the difficulty level progresses. And in practical areas, because I'm family and consumer science, right? In section B, there are certain questions that are structured a particular way, whether it's a data response question. The teachers are trained, or should be trained, to actually write their own test based on that kind of model, so that when a child comes to you in grade 10, you are then teaching them the structure of the exam as they go. Therefore, when they sit in the front of that national exam in grade 12, they are able to achieve at their level because they would have been used to the format of the exam, they'll be used to the questioning, the types of questions for the exam, and still, even in math and English, you have, well, at least in math, core and extended papers. All right, the core is, that's geared toward the masses. The extended is your high flyer. Now, again, I'm a curriculum officer. But I used to work with exams.
I want to just say something which I know is going to be
That's all right, say it.
radical. And I'm only thinking, let's put it this way. You have a problem. I know the solution. The execution of the solution is the problem. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that I don't think the system is built to deliver the actual solution which exists. Here's what I mean. Math and English are the foundation of, in my view, all knowledge. Your ability to numeracy and literacy, correct? And as a nation, therefore, our goal, besides making sure every child has good self-esteem, knows that they shouldn't punch someone that they have disagreement with, those types of civility things, character things, which I think are just as important. But outside of that, I do understand, but I hate it. Our system should be able to say, okay, you are in grade 10. You're reading on a grade 5 level. And I've taught in the school system. So I'm not making this up. You are in grade 10, but your mathematical skills are at grade 4. Okay, all right? So my thing is this. Why do we have a kid taking 8 subjects when they can't read past grade 4? The only thing that I would want, and I think we should want, is by the time this child leaves us, this child has the tools to be able to go and catch up later, learn later, because they can actually read. They can read, and because that's what history is and social studies is, it's reading. So why is it that we don't stop, arrest it, and let them spend 9 to 3, learn how to read, and learn how to do the mathematical skills? Because that's the basis of being able to participate as a learner in society. And I understand that that's almost like turning the school upside down, but you're actually trying to solve the problem.
Not necessarily. The one thing, and I'm sorry for now, but that is the one thing that I wish we would change. There is, maybe I get in trouble to say this, but that's all right.
Join me. I know it's in trouble. Good.
There is a category of children I think need to be focused on basic life skills like mathematics. Not necessarily BGCSE mathematics, maybe not necessarily all that's included in BJC either, but enough for them to become a productive citizen, enough for them to be able to get a loan and know that they're not getting robbed, or how many hours they're on a job, and if they work so much overtime, they can calculate and know that they are not getting.
They can be a citizen. They will not be taken advantage of. They will not feel, you know what I'm saying, angry because they can't participate.
That's a change that we advocate for. And
but the high school diploma isn't even a BGCSE.
No,
it's BJC.
The high school diploma is 4 BGCs.
However, BJC, math and English are still geared toward a certain syllabus.
I hear you.
And perhaps that syllabus is not the basic life skill for math and English.
So even the curriculum itself isn't equipping that person?
Not curriculum.
Instructors?
The syllabus.
The syllabus.
The examination.
Okay,
tool.
let's switch the word.
No,
Yeah.
the syllabus is what you test. The curriculum is what is being taught in the classroom.
I get it.
The curriculum, and this is part of what I want to say a little earlier. When Dr. Taggy says we need to include restorative practices in the curriculum, are we talking about, because we tend to equate the curriculum with specific subjects, are we talking about restorative practices being infused across the curriculum continuum, meaning all subjects? We just want to infuse it in there, but not necessarily say it's a separate class. Because typically when we go to forums like this, we always hear, and this should be in the curriculum.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right?
I'll allow 2 more questions, but this is the last point I want to make. Go ahead.
It should be the practice
that's done in every classroom from pre-K to 12.
So I want to just tell this story about an ADHD boy, who's my son, who's getting D's in grade 10. D's in grade 10. I pulled him out of school. Now I had the means economically to get him tutors. But I said, boy, you're getting D's. You ain't going to school no more. And it don't make no sense me giving you 9, 10 subjects. I pulled him out of school. In grade 11, he had 5 subjects. Math, English, technical drawing, I can't remember the other 2, art, and one other one. He had 5 tutors. He went to the tutors. He sat the BGCSEs. He passed them. He came to University of the Bahamas, didn't even do grade 12, came to UB. Now he's at FIU. Because school wasn't working, he was bored. He unfortunately got caught up in the whole COVID virtual. I'm sure it was on YouTube and Reddit. He wasn't watching that class. He was sleeping through most of everything. So he's just one of thousands. So if it doesn't work for them, they don't need, and they don't need all those subjects to make it. They don't. The University of Bahamas only requires you to have math and English.
I just want to say quickly what the subjects is. We in the School of Education.